Another little guy. I mean, they're definitely healthy. Even for their size, they're fat and all that, but man, where's the big ones? Hey everybody, it's Dalton. You know, all of us, we want to catch big bass. The only problem is you don't always catch big bass. I'm in the lake right now where the watercolor's a little off. It's usually a greenish color when I fished out there before. Right now it's kind of a brownish color. And I did a little research on it, and I'm finding out that the oxygen level of the lake is low. And that's how that watercolor came to be. So the bass aren't necessarily as active as they usually are. So what they're doing is they're tucking either deep in or real close to that vegetation where they can get oxygen. And that's where I've been catching them. I knew I felt something. Now, I've been catching a lot of small ones at this lake, and you know, that can be kind of frustrating. Catching small bass can be frustrating. So can it help you when you catch small bass? Can it help you catch bigger bass? And I think it can. There's a number of things you want to look at when you're catching those smaller bass. First of all, how are they biting? Is it a real aggressive bite? Is it a bite that maybe you just barely feel them and you get them hooked? I would say right now it would be a bite where I'm barely feeling them in order to get them hooked. I'm not feeling that pounding, hard bite. So I know it's a slow bite right now. That kind of gives me an indication of some things that I need to do. Another thing that you're going to learn from small fish is retrievals, okay? So a fast retrieve is not working at this lake right now. Crankbaits are not working right now for me. Spinner baits, anything working fast, it's just not happening. So the retrieval, even if I use a cranking style bait, is going to have to be much slower. Oh yeah. Another indication that small bass give you are the colors of your baits. What colors are they hitting on? Look, if they're hitting on a certain color as small bass, the bigger bass will hit on those colors as well. And then also, where are you catching them? What kind of vegetation? Are you catching them in grass? Are you catching them by reeds? Are you catching them underneath overhang branches and overhang trees? Those small bass are going to give you some indicators that somewhere in that lake there's some bigger bass that might be tucked away in that same type of cover. So, I am definitely not finding big bass. Threw this back in some weeds, a little Texas rigged yum dinger, a little 4-inch yum dinger, and felt a little tap. I got a big hook on there, and it didn't matter. These are largemouth bass, and they got big mouths. But I have not been able to get through these little ones to get a big one. Rest assured though, I'm going to keep trying. So when you're in a lake like this that's notoriously tough, this is a tough lake. I know I'm not going to get there and have a bunch of bites. I've got to make every bite count. But what's fun about it is you can try to figure things out. So I want to go over 3 or 4 things that when I get out to the lake later this week, I'm going to give it a try. Well, I know they're keying in on small bait fish. So what I'm going to do here, if I don't break everything, is I'm going to take what is called an underspin. This is a VMC underspin, and I've got a little Yum Pulse swim bait. I'm using a chartreuse color, and this has a little spinner under it. Now you can work this really slow. So I'm going to give that a try because I can do a very slow retrieve on this type of a bait. The other thing I'm going to use is what is called a bladed jig. Now there's all kinds of different jigs, but a bladed jig literally has this little blade on it, and what it does is it goes back and forth and it creates sort of a vibrating movement for this bait. So what I'm doing is I've got a little Yum Pulse swim bait on there, a shad color. This is a Z-Man chatterbait. It's a 3/8 ounce. I got a white silver color, and I'm running this actually on 10-pound braid. Now what I do, I don't know if you can see this, but I take about 1 foot to 1.5 foot of this braid and I color it black. And the reason that I do that isn't to try to make the line invisible. That's not going to happen. It cuts down the light reflection so that when the sun hits that braid, it's not going to reflect light, so they're not going to get distracted by that. They're just simply going to look at the bait. Another thing I'm going to do. Very simply, one of the best baits to use is going to be a soft stick bait. Now I use a couple of different brands. I use the Yum Dingers and I use the Yamamoto Senkos. Now, if you take a pack of 8 of these and a pack of 8 of these Senkos, these Yamamotos are a lot heavier. And I need a heavier worm for the technique that I'm going to use. Now I've got a 4/0, man, I'm all messed up. I got a 4/0 extra wide gap hook. This is a Gamakatsu deep throat extra wide gap hook. I have a 5-inch Yamamoto Senko, and all I'm doing with this is I'm just Texas rigging it, okay? And you can see that's what it looks like when you Texas rig. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of the skin of that bait so that I can run my finger down without getting poked, and that is a weedless Yamamoto Senko. Now you notice I have absolutely no weight on it. I'm throwing this out weightless because I'm going to throw this right in the grass, right in the cover, and this is a great way to catch bass. And then the other thing I'm going to do, I talked about colors. Being out at this lake, I noticed a couple of them were dead. They're little baby bass floating up on the water. Bass will eat bass, okay? So what I did was I picked up some of these. These are a Zoom Tiny Fluke. The color of this is a baby bass. I have caught quite a few fish at this lake on a drop shot. Drop shot is a very effective way to catch fish out there. So the way I've got this set up is I have a little 3/16 ounce drop shot weight, okay? And I've got a size 1 Trocar drop shot hook, and I've got this on 8-pound test. Now what I do is I take that little fluke and I nose hook it. And it looks just like a baby bass. This is such an effective way to catch them. Now here's what's interesting about a drop shot. Big bass have been caught on drop shots, not just small bass. I've caught some of my biggest bass on little baits like that. Don't think for a second that a big bass won't take a small bait. If you put it by him, he's going to take it. And one of the best ways to do it is that drop shot. So just by looking around and noticing the color of those small bass, I'm able to match that exact color. And this is critical when you're out there fishing. So don't always get too discouraged when you're catching small bass. A lot of times those small bass can give you little hints on how to catch the bigger ones. I constantly like to challenge myself. I could run out right now to the south of me, about an hour away, go to Lake Nacimiento. I could catch a bunch of those spotted bass. They're easy to catch out there. They're super aggressive. But I also like going to these small, tough lakes. Lakes that are heavily fished. Lakes that are just tough in general, because I got to tell you, it makes you a better bass fisherman when you do that. So I'm going to be spending quite a few days or trips out at this little lake because I am determined to try to get me a big bass in this lake. I've caught them before out there. I had a pretty good winter out there this year and caught some nice bass, and I'm certainly going to give it a try. There is one more thing that I'm probably going to throw out there, and that's a topwater frog, and I'll let you know how that goes. Well, I hope this video helps. Thanks for tuning in. I'll keep you posted on what's going on. Talk to you soon.